Very sad.
Yeah, very sad. Yeah, well, yeah, Bayo, that's the other sort of before we'll take some of the last copies we have on the front page of New Telegraph. Maybe you come in here. Very quickly, New Telegraph, below the nameplate of New Telegraph, we'll just take some headlines there before we return to Bayo. Sugar plant, Dagote, Nasarawa signed $700 million MOU, and students abduction, that's in Ekbe. Kidnappers reduce ransom to 50 million naira. Details on page 8. And 14 killed as Boko Haram attacks Meduguri and burns IDP camps. And pastor beheads 7-year-old boy, buries head on altar. That's on page 9. Bayo, please come in quickly, then we'll take another. We'll take the list story subsequently after you.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to draw attention to what the acting president launched in Maiduguri yesterday. It is a departure from the queue for food process that has been taking place at the internally displaced person. This time around is going to be what is described as doorstep exchange, and people are given pre-issued vouchers, and that will be determine the quarterly distribution of food. The acting president says it is part of the vision of President Buhari to ensure that transparency is taken into serious need to meet the needs of the internally displaced persons. Also, the sad story along Kaduna Highway, 12:30 in broad daylight, a gang of men, 30 of them wielding guns, stops series of cars and carted about 20 men into the bush. So far, there is no news about them. But you recall that just under a month and a half ago, Kaduna Highway was one of the safest in the country when the airport had moved to Kaduna. And so this is of serious concern. A driver who luckily escaped was the one who has drawn attention to this. And so far, there has not been any news. I'm talking about the courts that Kingsley mentioned earlier on. The appeal court sitting in Benin today will be giving its verdict about the appeal by Ize Iyamu of the winnership of Governor Godwin Obaseki. Also, at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, the case has been closed. The defense say none of the exhibits and evidence given by the 4 prosecution witnesses link Dr. Bukola Saraki to the alleged offense. However, the defense disagrees. The prosecution disagrees. It says that a serious prima facie case has been established, particularly by Exhibit 6 and 26.
All right, Bayo, let's return to the New Telegraph newspaper. The lead story, as we said earlier, this is a report from the proceedings, from the court proceedings. It says with a kicker, that's the lead story, EFCC, how Army, DSS, police, and INEC shared the Zianis $115 million with a rider, FROIC, NSCDC, that's civil defense officials, are beneficiaries. Now, there is a sidebar there. It's, if we can see that on the screen, there's a sidebar there where it says Kwara State beneficiaries. Some of the beneficiaries listed there. You can see them, of course, as I said, this is a report from court proceedings. It says one of them, OC Mopol and his men. Another one, 2IC Mopol and his men. And then Director of DSS and his men. Bayo, always on his men, no women amongst them?
No, well, in the armed forces,
they were showing a woman's
position of the armed forces. But however, what I found very interesting of monies that were allocated to this person, that tells you the depth to which corruption had permeated our electoral process. Right. Meanwhile, tomorrow, the Super Eagles will be taking on Bafana. The South Africans say they are not here to watch the Uyo Stadium, and they are here to win. They specifically identified they will beat the Super Eagles with counter-attacks. The Super Eagles are not talking. They say this is the first step of their determination to qualify for Cameroon, Africa, and also World Cup, and they are determined to win all their matches. Anyway,
we wish them all the very best, and let the best side win, as we'll say. But of course, we want our home one to win. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We will go on a break now. When we return, it will be time to take a look at the first part of our conversation, the legislature in 2 years of Buhari administration. We'll be right back.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
All right, welcome back. If you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, the legislature is a vital institution of democracy. Now, on account of its representative nature, it is regarded usually as a symbol of democracy. Now, 2 years after the inauguration of the 8th National Assembly, our correspondent Ignatius Nkwo highlights the intervention so far from members of the 8th Assembly.
9th of June 2015, members of the National Assembly were sworn in amidst high-level power play and intrigues that greeted the election of the leadership of the two chambers. Bukola Saraki of the All Progressives Congress from Kwara State emerged Senate President, and Ike Ekweremadu of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, from Enugu State as Deputy Senate President. Yakubu Dogara of the All Progressives Congress, representing Bogoro, thus Tafawa Balewa Federal Constituency of Bauchi State, was elected Speaker, while Yusuf Suleiman Lasun, representing Irebodun, Olorunda, Oloru, Oshobo Federal Constituency of Osun State, was elected Deputy Speaker. The two chambers took to legislative business after constituting its standing committees and setting out its legislative agenda, which is anchored on reviving Nigeria's economy, creation of jobs through legislative interventions, complementing the federal government's anti-corruption policy, boost investor confidence, and strengthen security were also embedded in the legislative agenda of the two chambers. The National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable became a platform to initiate legislation that will ensure ease of doing business in Nigeria. The House of Representatives convened sectoral debate where 6 ministers were invited to unveil their roadmap towards the diversification of Nigeria's economy. The National Assembly, within its 2 years of legislative intervention, has initiated and considered some important bills. The Senate has passed 98 bills, adopted 193 motions, while the House of Representatives passed 159 bills and more than 1,000 motions. Some of these bills include the Northeast Development Commission Bill, the Nigerian Ports and Harbour Bill, the Nigerian Railway Bill, the Transport Commission Bill, the Bankruptcy and Insolvent Bill. The Petroleum Industry Bill has been passed by the Senate and awaits concurrence by the House of Representatives.
With this bill, the oil and gas industry will begin to see the new kind of investment that is necessary. We'll plug all the loopholes, be able to reduce the areas of corruption, inefficiency. People will be able to benefit better in the petroleum sector, and that Nigerians will be better for it.
The National Assembly is presently on the process of constitution amendment, which has witnessed a series of retreats and workshops. In the last 2 years, the National Assembly has carried out quite a number of its oversight function on the executive, such as the screening of ministerial, ambassadorial and heads of boards and parastatals. The National Assembly has passed 2 appropriation bills, the 2016 and 2017 budgets.
The budget process last year was acrimonious, and we had a lot of issues. This year, with the benefit of what happened last year, those issues were addressed right at the beginning.
History will judge us harshly if we act as stumbling block on the path of progress for our dear nation. May I once again thank everyone here for the many sacrifices.
With 2 years remaining for the 8th National Assembly, Nigerians apparently expect more legislative interventions from their legislators.
Thank you very much, Ignatius Nko, for that background report. Now we're being joined in the studio here, as well as Benin Network Center. The guests will look into those areas of legislative business. 2 years under the Buhari administration. We'd like to welcome at this point Deputy Senate Leader, Senator Bala Ibn Nala, to the program.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
And good morning, viewers.
We also have joined us in the studio this morning the House Chief Whip, Honorable Alhassan Ado Dogowa. Honorable Dogowa, thank you very much for joining us again on the program.
Good morning.
And in our Benin Network Center, we'd like to welcome a public affairs analyst, Dr. Osawaru Okonzua. Dr. Okonzua, it's our pleasure to have you again on the program.
Yeah.
Okay, Kingsley, I think we'll start off from here.
Yeah, well, let's kick off with Senator Ibn Nala. Senator Ibn Nala, correspondent in the background report, highlighted some of the milestones of the 8th National Assembly. Of course, we are familiar with what happened at the early stages 2 years ago when the 8th Assembly was inaugurated. But it would appear, you know, from all accounts that the focus on the key items on the legislative agenda, namely economic and business environment reforms, that would appear to be getting a great deal of traction. What, from your own self-assessment as lawmakers, is the cardinal thing that you believe that you have achieved with regard to these business and economic reforms?
Okay, thank you very much, and very good morning to everyone. When you talk about cardinal achievements, I have had the privilege of representing the National Assembly on the Prudential Enabling Business Committee by the President. And I can sit down here and tell Nigerians that today we are the only institution that can claim not to have any minus in our contribution to the desire of the present administration to put Nigeria on the map of ease of doing business in this country. And like we have said, certain fundamental decisions have been taken by the Senate. You've just been told that the PIB bill has been passed by the Senate. That bill has been there for decades, and it has always received some problems in its passage. Just yesterday, we have had the privilege again of passing the Federal Roads Act. Again, that's a milestone in ensuring that we have laid a solid foundation for us to address the issue of transportation, which is a key factor in the economic development of any country. You know, it's very difficult to follow the entire phantasma of the inauguration of the first Senate to today to clearly say which achievements are cardinal and which ones are not. In my opinion, whatever decision that was taken by the 8th Assembly has been fundamentally tailored towards meeting the aspirations of Nigerians who voted us into power.
All right, thank you, Senator Nala. Of course, we'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation. Honorable Ado Dogowa, taking a look at you know, what our correspondent indicated in the as highlights of the issues that tackled already by the 8th National Assembly, narrow it down to the business and economic reforms, which, of course, as we indicated, is part of your legislative agenda. What's driving this, and how satisfied are you, and what is left to be done?
Let me once again say thank you for giving us this privilege to be on this platform. And like my colleague has said, Senator Nala, let me start by saying, as long as you want to appraise or you want to analyze how much we have done, or how much we have achieved in the context of our duties or our core mandate is as an institution. I think audience needs to know exactly what are those responsibilities that we're constitutionally charged with. Basically, whatever we do in relation to the economy of the country must have to be within the context of the law-making responsibility of the National Assembly. My belief is that we are not investors, and we are not also economic stakeholders where we go and maybe come up with a company. The only responsibility we are charged with is that of creating an enabling environment for investment to thrive. So I want to believe the National Assembly, or more specifically the House of Representatives, which I represent here, has done quite well in that regard. We are lawmakers. We make laws to facilitate your operation as media men. We also make laws to facilitate convenient and friendly economic investments among economic investors. So I want to say, with specific reference to some of the laws we have reviewed, for instance, the Public Procurement Act. We had a cause to review that act because that act had not taken into cognizance, has not taken into consideration our local content. The fact that our local investors be encouraged to be major contractors. It was a law that was just blindly enacted in a way that it gave rather an advantage to major contractors, Julius Beggars, people who have the weather withered. But we have now taken short of that law, of that act, to review it and create a room whereby smaller agencies, smaller organizations that are indigenous could also be accommodated within the context of public procurement process. I think this is a very giant stride to encourage our investors in terms of really actualizing contracts or securing contracts from government. Other legislations, for instance, to do with intervention, some kinds of intervention. Some of these things we do must not come by way of legislation. Sometimes it could be by way of resolution of the National Assembly. And resolutions also must have to be respected. And when such resolutions are respected, you find out that some of our interventions we make will impact very positively in creating a better and a very proactive economic environment. Take, for instance, the recession. We have set up a special committee, a technical committee, to look into the recession. Indeed, we all agreed that Nigeria was or is still in recession. Some said we have graduated out of it. I'm not sure whether that is true, because I'm an agrarian person. I come from the village, and I always go home virtually on every week basis. So I don't want to outrightly believe whether we have graduated out of recession. But the fact here is that the House, out of its popular sensitivity to the plight of the people, we have come at a point and set up a committee, a technical committee, to look at this aspect of recession and see how we can really advise government. Because whatever we do within the context of our abilities as an institution, in most cases you find us only advising, recommending, making laws. But the key driving institution still remains the executive arm of government. Unfortunately, the executive arm of government has not been quite keen in really taking up this challenge. But we must have to accept that as far as we are concerned as an institution, we have done well in terms of creating the enabling environment. We have also done well in partnering with the executive arm of government, most especially when most of us come from the same political party. We are bound by the same political philosophy and ideologies. And I want to say that the government, on the part of the executive, really needs to do more in terms of really partnering and really implementing some of these laws that we have promulgated and some of the resolutions that were made for the benefit of our own people. You have no other quota that represents the interest of the people than the National Assembly, than the legislature in every kind of democracy world over.
All right, Honorable Dogwa, thank you very much. Distinguished Senator, Honorable Dogwa. Now, you made mention of aspect of the executive list, the need for deeper understanding, which is what democracy is all about, for the benefit of the people. Now, the 8th National Assembly kicked off on a wonderful note, outlined in legislative agenda to actually structure the democracy we have in process. Now, how united are members of the two chambers today to the, despite the wranglings of the party within inter-party or intra-party, to actually working for the interest of Nigerians? How do you see the process of deepening democracy on the three arms of government to actually boost the confidence of the average Nigerian who had voted in?
You see, every person watching the developments in our democratic system will have cause for worry. Cause for worry in the sense that some of the practitioners appear with the greatest respect not to clearly understand why Nigerians opted for democracy, why some people lost their life in the fight to restore democracy. And speaking from the limited understanding I have of governance in a democratic setup, the desire of Nigerians to be able to go to bed and wake up with some reasonable degree of certainty as to what will happen to them in accordance with the provision of the Constitution that they have made for themselves and the laws that are in existing is the basis for that. Now, if you come into the governance corridor and you decide that might is right, your thinking is the best, then you have a problem. And I have always told people that the rules of engagement between elected officials and those who elected them into the office is that singular act of you taking the Quran and the Bible to subscribe to the oath of office. Because the oath of office is the envelope established for you by those who elected you into office to be sure that they are safe with you. And for them to get that assurance, even after having the confidence to elect you into office, they still insist, come and take the Bible, come and take the Quran, swear to us that you will uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law. What that means is that whatever you do outside the provision of the Constitution and the law constitute what is called gross misconduct. Of course, certain actions are expected. But unfortunately for us, Nigerians are yet to even understand the fact that in the entire executive arm of government, only two people are elected, the president and his vice. Any other person is an appointee of the president. And for you to be an appointee, it means you have a corresponding responsibility to go into the shoes of the oath of office taken by the president and his vice, and to act within the provisions of the law and the Constitution that Nigerians have given to you. Well, because of our democratic experience, because of what we have gone through in the past and where we are, it is expected that we will have one or two people slipping out of that requirement. But it is equally expected that the corresponding responsibility on the National Assembly is to whip them back to line so that Nigerians can be safe. And in so doing, of course, you expect some frictions here and there. And those frictions are reasonably necessary at this stage of our political development. So let them not be seen as a basis for defining the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Let them be seen as necessary intervention by the constitutional responsibility vested on the two arms of government, including the judiciary, to intervene in such situations.
All right, Senator Nala, thank you very mumuch. Let's go back to our Benin Network studios. You saw Dr. Osawaro Okunzuwa a moment ago on the split screen. Was to the right of the screen. Dr. Osawaro, let's get your perspective on this, at least from public perception angle, namely 2 years of the 8th National Assembly. What is it that we are beginning to see in terms of the character of the lawmakers and the quality of their legislative function?
Well, I should say most Nigerians are not very conversant with the activities that go on in the National Assembly. On account of that, they also make some judgments believing the National Assembly is generally ineffectual. But that is unfortunate, I should say. 2 years on, I think they are shared survivor, just like you said yourself during your introduction. They symbolize our democracy, and we should be happy about that. Most of the work they do, for no fault of theirs, is not visible to the public, really. It is true that the government is supposed to be of one piece, divided into 3 arms. But of the 3 arms, the National Assembly in our own case, or the legislature globally, is supposed to provide the scope within which the other arms of government will operate. Therefore, the legislature ought to claim some credit for whatever achievement any government is able to record. But for us in Nigeria, we will need further civic education We need deeper entrenchment of our democracy and our democratic tenets as well. Our members of the National Assembly would do very well educating their constituents, even as they hold their mandate, to always explain what their main role is. Our gentlemen, our representatives from the National Assembly have explained this already, that it looks very, very nebulous what they do because they are not out in the field implementing things, creating projects and so on and so forth. So they have the sympathy of Nigerians who are well enough on that. But they also have to be attuned, they have to be seen to be attuned to the welfare of Nigerians. They have to be seen to be on the side of Nigerians on any issue. The National Assembly as a locus for debate and national policy ought to be very, very much in the vanguard of what will benefit Nigerians, and that should be visibly so. That is the only way they are going to get the sympathy and the popular support of Nigerians, even as they hold the mandate after the election. So my own take to summarize is that it is true, not only in Nigeria, all over the world, the work of legislature is not terribly visible to most of the people who voted them in. So that's a disadvantage for those of us who are asking for quick results and so on, and you wonder why there should be an assembly of so many people and all they do is apparently talking and so on. But the talking they do is consequential because the laws that are enacted from the talking, the oversight that takes place from the talking, and so on and so forth are ultimately beneficial, just like I said before, because they set the scope for national discourse generally.
All right, thank you very much there, Dr. Osawaru Okunzua. Again, we'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation based on some of the points that you've just touched on. We shall, of course, be looking at some of the relationships involving the lawmakers and various stakeholders and the mix of our democracy. We'll be joined now by another guest here in the Abuja studios. It's Mr. Eze Onyekwere, of course, a public affairs analyst, and he appears on Good Morning Nigeria from time to time. Mr. Onyekwere, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
A pleasure too.
All right, same question I popped to Dr. Okunzua at our Benin Network studios. From an evaluative perspective, what is it now we are beginning to see in terms of the character of the 8th National Assembly with regard to its constitutional mandate?
Well, I have to make this analysis against the background of where the National Assembly is coming from. First, you know, it's the youngest arm of our democratic experience, the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Under the military regimes, you had the executive, the judiciary were there, even though they were blowing muted trumpet throughout, of course, the jurisdiction clauses. But today, since 1999, we've had the legislature, which is the youngest arm, and appears to be the most destabilized of all the other arms because people in the executive and the party apparatus seek to impose those who should lead the legislature right from 1999 up to today. But that is not to excuse for their shortcomings. You know, I've just laid this background. What we see is a legislature that has about 4 cylinders. But today, I think they are firing with roughly 1.5 to 2 cylinders. They have not fired on all the 4 cylinders to produce the right results that Nigeria needs. So, well, just let my people go. Not really a pass mark, but just pitying them, let my people go. So I'm insisting that they can afford to do better, particularly considering the present economic situation, the present political turbulence we are facing in Nigeria. For instance, with all the political turbulence and all the noise that they heated up polity, I've not heard anything from the legislature. Because these are times that we expect our leadership to be able to come up with things and laws or policies that will calm down the charged atmosphere. Even in terms of the recession we are into, yes, there's a business roundtable, there are bills that are said to be geared towards targeting them. But at the same time, we have not worked with the requisite speed, with the level of commitment that we need to show that we are in a crisis situation. For instance, when the National Assembly got the budget on 15th of December last year, we were promised, Nigerians got the promise that by the end of February latest, that the budget will be ready. And we waited until the end of February, March, April, and entered May. I started wondering what they were looking for inside that budget that took them so long to approve it. And then back forth again, the executive has started their own business. For the last close to 20-something days, they are still examining their budget. which is not just like many MDs don't have more than 20 pages in their budget, except the big ministries like Education, Science and Technology and Health that may have up to 100 and something pages. You submitted a 20-page document. Somebody reviewed it. What is the big deal that under 1 hour you cannot see the difference between what was submitted and what eventually came out? So I'm also trying to locate the performance of the legislature within the context of the overall government, because it takes two to tango. In some other climes, you have a legislative agenda worked out by the political party in the majority. And so that's the product of both the executive, the party apparatus, and those in the legislature. And they say, this is how we are going based on our manifesto. So you run with it. And all those big bills should have been there in the first 1 month, 2 months, so that in the next 6 months, 7 months, they will have passed the major core reform bills on the basis of the change agenda. But that didn't happen. They started fighting from day one. The party and the leadership of the National Assembly started fighting from day one. It's only recently that they're even trying to normalize things. So that's why I'm saying they could have done more, but they were hamstrung from the beginning.
All right. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to continue in that the line of the issue of frosty relationship between the executive and legislature, because it will appear that this is putting more constraints. Well, I wouldn't know where you're going to warehouse some of the areas of impediment more, but let's examine. You've just pointed out it's the youngest arm of the government. Yeah. Why is it difficult, really, to actually understand themselves and carry out their functions, even if we look at the issue of checks and balances?
I was just wondering, just before, sorry, Mr. Onyekwe, just before you pop in, it's probably an argument that might be taken at another occasion. When you say the legislature is the youngest arm, and that, of course, the executive and the judiciary had always been there, well, the point is, as Senator Nala indicated, and that we all know, it's only the president and the vice president and governor and deputy governors who are elected, and they were not previously in office. Now, if you also look at the range of the appointments that they make to help them run the executive branch, then you will know that they are also rookies, as it were. Perhaps only the bureaucracy is the one that is relatively permanent. But as I said, that's an argument for another day. Please take our question.
Yes, just to come in. Even though you had a military president, there was a chief executive who was the leader of the country, being a member of the executive. And then the executive combined legislative powers under the Armed Forces Ruling Council or the Supreme Military Council. So there was no different arm of government with its own civil servants and public servants who have had experience of lawmaking, even if it was the military experience. So everything was rolled into one. So that's why we're insisting they are the youngest. But that does not excuse 17 years is enough for people to learn. Now, it's not like one is making excuses to say, if from the beginning, for instance, this current National Assembly, from the election of the Senate President, the Speaker, there was disagreement. And some people said, no, over a dead body, you cannot be there. And then all manners of things were thrown at people who were tried to court. The court cases are still pending up till today. So you never get that rest of mind to be able to perform at your utmost. You recall way back, Obasanjo's government, Obasanjo went ahead to tell Nigerians of the fantastic amounts of money that the National Assembly people were collecting, jumbo pay, furniture allowance, wardrobe. But what he failed to tell Nigerians was that that was an amount approved by Ramfak, of which he was the first to collect. And the others, and gullible people began to shout, oh, National Assembly, I'm not excusing, please, I'm not excusing whatever you do, because I will still come to your flaws. But I'm saying that it should be put in the proper context. Okay? So the legislature also, because there are so many, 400 and something of them, so it's difficult to build consensus and agree. At the executive level, if the president says this is where I stand, you either ship up or you ship out. Okay, so you don't go, but it's easy to disagree in the legislature to say the sharing formula wasn't right, because they always share money everywhere. And so if you didn't get enough, you complain. And in the process of complaining, you can go to the public. But if I'm the overall boss and the money shared is the executive as they usually do, nobody complains. It's like, it's sealed up there. So the important thing is that they should realize that beyond being part of 460-something persons, that they have individual reputations, and that they may also have political careers in future. And so the expectation is that they should take responsibility rather than seeing themselves as a pack of, a bunch of people. You are not holding any particular person responsible. So it is important that now things seem to be cooling down, that the political party itself that is leading should put its house in order, place up all the bills that they need, and ask these legislators to say, please give us this before we leave office, so that this will be the landmark of when we spent the first 4 years. We are particularly disturbed. I mean, last year you had all the scandal that came from the budgeting process, and well, this year they said they have opened their budget to Nigerians and are beating their chest. My immediate response will be, he knows very well that before they amended the constitution in 2010, 2011, that the budgets were open. Okay? So if you suddenly, without any legal basis, without any policy basis, decided to remove from the public domain what was initially there, and you were holding it, and after a while your hand became too heavy for you, you put it back in the public domain. Am I supposed to clap for you or to reprimand you for having taken this thing away? So nobody should clap for the legislator for doing what you should have done ab initio. But when you now realize maybe there's so much public pressure, if there wasn't public pressure from civil society, maybe up till now you have still hidden your budget. And the next challenge is that you are not the only ones on statutory transfer. Why don't you give us the budget of the National Judicial Council? Why don't you give us the budget of the Human Rights Commission? Why don't you give us the details of the budget of INEC and the public, public complaints, or what the other one? Public Complaints Commission. These are within your power, so open up everywhere. Once you open it, you have opened up your own, you now have the morality, the moral right to now say, everybody open up, so that we know how public money is being spent.
All right, Mr. Ezo, thank you very much again. We'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation. Back again to the two lawmakers with us, Senator Nala and Honorable Ado Doguwa. Gentlemen, some of the most challenging issues that the National Assembly faced, we know. You had your leadership crisis at the beginning and so on and so forth. But from your perspective, what were the most challenging issues that the 8th Assembly has had to face? And is the Assembly now fully settled for work? I mean, you're a pilot, by the way, so have you gained altitude?
well, can I have the permission to respectfully tell Onyekwere that the civil society has demanded an irrevocable demand from the National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a bill for an act to have access to all informations in whatever form that is within the government. And in our wisdom, we acceded to that request by enacting the Freedom of Information Bill. At that stage, our responsibility to begin to expose, we never know what he wants, we don't know what you want. But we have given you the law to look for what you want. And the law is in force. So let me respectfully enter a plea of not guilty for holding information to Nigerians on behalf of the National Assembly. On the second aspect, as to whether the National Assembly can be said to be settled for work, there will never be a time that the National Assembly will be fully settled for the kind of interpretation that you are trying to give to the National Assembly.
I'm not giving an interpretation, I'm asking a question.
Okay. Yes. Let me respectively say that the framers of our Constitution were not stupid. First, they knew that Nigeria consists of multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and how do I put it? So many multis. And in their wisdom, they felt that the only way to ensure an enduring democracy in our march towards nationhood is to ensure that as practically as possible, every ethnic nationality in this country is represented in the National Assembly. It therefore came out with the formula that landmass and population should be the basis for electing people into the House of Representatives. After doing that beautiful work, they now realize suddenly that this formula has created a situation where a section of the country, by reason of this formula, will produce more members in the National Assembly, and that is the northern part, which will have roughly about 68 to 69% of the members. And in a democracy, being a recurrent suspicion, whereby more than half the people will be right more than half the time, it means on every fundamental national issue, the North has the potential to dominate other sections of the country. Then they said, okay, fine. In order to assuage these fears, can we now create a federation that will have a Senate and then make it bicameral? And then the basis of the election of the senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be based on equality of states. And then they make it bicameral. So I really get confused when I begin to hear people, balancing these things are politically, it's not easy. More so that this 8th National Assembly is constituted in such a manner that the ruling party does not have what we refer to as comfortable majority. This is the situation. And for us to massage the situation in order to assist the government of the day, it means a lot of politicking, a lot of arrangement, a lot of things have to go underground. So it will be unwise for me to sit down here and assure Nigerians that the National Assembly can be said to be fully settled for the purpose of performing the function of the constitutional function of the National Assembly. But I can assure Nigerians that we have done so well in at least, guiding the thinking of elected legislatures to know that the overriding interest of the nation supersedes their individual, collective, regional, or whatever interest that exists. And therefore, in the discharge of the functions of the National Assembly, national interest overrides all other interests.
All right, Honorable Adodogowa, I mean, take Onyekpere along with what your response would be to this. National Assembly, according to him, is firing on 1.5 of 4 cylinders. 1.5 to 2. So is the National Assembly now, at the end of second year, fully settled for work?
I think if I should give a rider to what the Senator has just said, let me also say very clearly that when you are coming to analyze an institution like the National Assembly, within the context of its responsibility, you must not go out of that context. I want to say that I disagree very seriously with what the professor has just said, that we are firing with 1.5 cylinder. More so because an institution that is now just one out of the so many components of the system cannot be judged in isolation. The National Assembly is part of the democratic system in the country.
Yeah, but he says all the 4 cylinders belong to the National Assembly in that context. The others also have their cylinders.
I'm coming. When you're operating in a system, whether you like it or not, you are hinged on whatever other component of the system do. So clearly I want to say that the National Assembly, subject to our mandate, our statutory mandate, our conventional mandate is contained in the Constitution. Like the Senator has said, we are doing our best. Let me say, for instance, because it's like you're coming up to now ask, what are the challenges we are facing? These are challenges that we face from core interplay. We are from core stakeholders, democratic stakeholders, the press, the civil society organizations, and even other arms of government. A situation whereby an institution like our own that has the confidence of the people, because this is an institution, whether you like it or not, that represents the heartbeat of the democratic system. And for us to really sustain and strengthen on parliamentary democracy, certainly you must have to operate in a systemic manner, a manner whereby every other component is seen to be supporting what we are doing. At the moment, for instance, quite unfortunately, when even our traditional responsibilities expelled out by the Constitution are being doubted, they are being put into public controversy, the National Assembly is unfortunately put in a very bad light. You won't expect a perfect operation. I want to say, for instance, like I said, a situation whereby your own basic responsibility is being doubted. For instance, our right to make laws, our right to even appropriate, which is a major responsibility of the National Assembly, is being doubted and speculated by members. Very recently, I heard some of the people in the public domain saying that we don't even have the right to even really minus, plus, or even work on the budget. The budget, by the way, is an estimate, proposals made by the government. And it is clearly spelled out in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that this is a document that is presented to the floor of the National Assembly as an estimate and merely a proposal. But yet, some people doubt our sagacity, doubt our capacity, doubt our the legality behind the National Assembly working on the budget of minus and plus. I want to say, in essence, that as long as Nigerians will want us to ply and operate our engine on 6-cylinder capacity, then we must not be distracted. The National Assembly has to be allowed to do endangered institution that you always want to delve even into our constitutional rights and responsibilities. For us to progress, for us to work in the expectation, in line with the expectation of Nigerians, for us to fly with for us to operate our engine with our 4 or 6 cylinders.
No, he said 4.
4, 5 or 6.
No, 4,
5 or 6, whatever it is. Let it be 4. But for us to operate in that capacity, then other agencies, institutions of government, and other stakeholders in the democratic process must have to allow us continue to consolidate on the gains we have made so far, so that parliamentary democracy can be strengthened, parliamentary representation can also be upheld to the extent that members of the National Assembly can be doing exactly what are the desires.
Are you settled for work now for the remainder of the tenure of the 8th Assembly?
I think we are absolutely settled. You can believe with me that the kind of stability we have been able to secure in the National Assembly, both in the leadership and on the floor of the House, especially the House of Representatives and the Senate as well, has gone far to confirm to you that the National Assembly, especially the House of Representatives, is not only set, we are prepared, ready to go, and we are going to give Nigerians the best they expect from us.
All right, Honorable Dogwa, how much the National Assembly will do that is left for us to start saying. Now, for viewers who have joined us, we'll quickly run through their tweets to be sure that they're following what, or you are following what they're actually asking us to do. Change to progress. First year was terrible, but at National Assembly in Nigeria, they've performed above average in the second year. They should keep focus on real issues and no personal issues.
And then we have this tweet from Iba Abuchi. It says, 2 years has been full of friction between the executive and the legislature, hence they do not concentrate on legislation.
From Lawal Olaya Abiodun, not all of their decisions are anti-people, and that's not what we send them to do. We're waiting. 2019 is around the corner.
Donatus Abo tweets, they should help the fight against corruption and reduce by over 60% their own budget. Same applies to the executive.
From Festus Akimboyewa, it's unforgivable that the 8th National Assembly wasted time pursuing an agenda that translates to individual survival and individual prosperity.
Sonny Makalomakoji tweets, I'm a bit impressed by the performance of the 8th Assembly, except that we've witnessed more rift than bills passed.
Enya Kebi Joseph, I want to commend the National Assembly for their doggedness despite the pressure from the executive to call them names to control them.
All right, those are some of the reactions that we are taking in the meantime. Let's go back to Dr. Okunzuwa at our Benin Network studios. Dr. Okunzuwa, of course, you've listened to the other guests who are here with us in the Abuja studios, indicating what some of the challenges have been and their readiness otherwise to continue to perform their constitutional functions. From your perspective, what exactly would you like to see? Because they will be into their 3rd year by today already. They are into their 3rd year. Perhaps they are going on recess. I don't know how many weeks they will go on recess for. Usually, they have this frequent recess that has also been a source of concern. But what would you like to see in terms of going forward? Because by 2018, I'm sure they will start losing altitude, getting set for the 2019 elections.
Well, first and foremost, I want gentlemen and the Ladies National Assembly to be conscious of their very importance, to probably develop some kind of thick skin to what may appear to be very severe and unfair criticism from some members of the public. We say that to encourage them because, as you have also said, I have agreed with you too, they symbolize our very democracy. Without the National Assembly, we are practicing a different form of government. But as they are aware of their responsibility, they should be attuned still to the welfare of Nigerians, the state of things across the country. They are well equipped to do that. Just like the Senator has said, we have a bicameral legislature. Every constituency has a member of representatives. Every senatorial district has a senator. So the National Assembly as an institution is well placed to feel the pulse of Nigerians from different corners of the country. So they should be able to aggregate that into a kind of agenda that will promote our welfare collectively. And it will be visible if they set about doing that. And as they about doing that too, they should also educate their constituencies individually and nationally as well for us to know what they are doing. The admission that the least developed of our arms of government on account of the milestones of political evolution, we also have to take into consideration when assessing them to make us a little bit more sympathetic to them. Most Nigerians are still not convinced about the importance of the National Assembly. I find that to be a contradiction. You couldn't be having a democracy and you wonder what National Assembly is there for. But we want to continuously encourage our compatriots who are privileged to be National Assembly to hold out, to always emphasize their role, to communicate with Nigerians at large, to develop all the channels that are legitimate, to let Nigerians know what they are doing, what they are up to from time to time. From the comments you have received, the feedback you have received, you have read out to the nation at large, people have varied views of them. They should also carry on in such a way that their conduct will improve perception. They shouldn't give any person the basis to believe that they are actually there to serve their own private interest. Of course, talking about settling down, I wouldn't want a National Assembly that can be likened to the peace of a graveyard. Of course, it shouldn't be turbulent in such a way that they become dysfunctional. The National Assembly as a locale for kind of pluralistic interaction is not going to be free of friction, obviously. And because they are also empowered to supervise the executive arm of government, we don't expect some kind of romantic embrace all the time. Otherwise, how are you going to supervise the executive arm of government? But we want the engagement of the executive to always be constructive, so that the utmost criterion for resolving any kind of conflict they may have with the executive government, executive arm of government, is what works best in pursuit of the welfare of the generality of Nigerians. So as they continuously do that, and our democracy itself marches forward, I'm sure the National Assembly will gain the confidence, will gain capacity to continuously do their work in spite of diversions. So on that note, I think I should be saying happy second anniversary to them. So far, so good.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okonjo. We'll get back to us in the Abuja studio. Senator Nala, of course, in issue of image problem for the National Assembly in the eye of the public, negative perception of different acts. Earlier on, Honorable Dugwa talked about the aspect of the power of appropriation. What exactly the legislation is supposed to be doing when it's time for appropriation? Now, understanding that is key for Nigerians. Theirs is to see the benefits of democracy on their hand. Where exactly is a power limited to, and what overall interest from other areas of government?
Okay, this is a very fundamental question, and I will give you the constitutional justification for depositing the power to budget for the National Assembly in the National Assembly. The framers of our Constitution have two anticipations. One is to the effect that Nigeria will, in its march to nationhood, will continue to have good presidents. But it equally anticipates a situation where one day we may be unlucky to have one bad one. So if they have quarantined the power to budget for the nation in the office of the president, what happens to the country if we run into a bad president who will now say that I am from Sokoto, and therefore, since I know that nobody can tamper with my budget, the entire revenue of the government of the federation should be diverted into Sokoto. So in the wisdom of the framers of our Constitution, they decided that to remove all these fears of domination, of marginalization, deposit the power to make budget. It's only unique to Nigeria, and a lot of people don't know. Deposit it in the National Assembly. The second assumption is that Nigeria is one of the biggest African countries, that we have, and that there will never be a time that we will have a president who will know every village in this country. I want you to understand. And that there is corresponding obligation on the president to ensure national cohesion. And to do that, it means the resources of the country must be channeled in such a manner that every component part of this country enjoys that. And therefore, in their wisdom, they said, okay, fine. Deposit this power in the National Assembly. President, prepare your budget, present it to the National Assembly. Let the National Assembly look at it. I'm going to tell you practical issue now. I don't know where Oyekore comes from, but in Imo, I can tell you, and I can sit down here and swear by the Quran, that President Buhari does not know where it's called Abin Okrikanweke, Aguneze. He doesn't know. In my own place, I can tell you that he doesn't know Kawara. He doesn't know Gebe. He doesn't know so many villages, Ankolo and the rest.
Which state is that?
That is Kebi. In Sokoto, I can tell you, he doesn't know Birjingo. He doesn't know Lafodu. But those people have voted him into power. And they have expectations. And their expectations can only be conveyed to him to rule the representatives that they have elected. This is how the framers of our constitution are thinking. And if anybody sit down and believe that in their wisdom, when they decided to deposit the power to make budget in the National Assembly, they didn't have this. I think it's a mistake. So what it means technically is that I can tell you that the minister that represents Kebi in the Federal Executive Council today, I can swear here, and I will go free, that he doesn't know Ankolo, he doesn't know Makuku. So if you rely upon him to say that he can prepare budget and advise the president on how the federal government money is going to be spent, it means the people of Ankolo and people of Makuku who voted President Buhari into power will never get anything. It means their aspiration will never be met. It means their effort to meet national cohesion will never be met. These are the reasons. Onyekole just said that the budget was presented in December, and that it took us time to do this. These are some of the things that have to be taken care of. We will not sit down and allow a committee, because the committee chairman is from Onyekore's village, and he will say, okay, all the water resources project in the country must be taken into the village. No, every senator must check. Every member of the House of Representatives must. I'm happy Dogwa is here. We used to have weekly, jointly principal officers meeting to appraise the progress so far made in the preparation of the budget. And let me tell you.
You used to have. Are you still having those meetings?
We are still having. And let me tell you, when the budget was presented, a lot of MDAs and some ministers refused to appear before the committees to defend their budget. Then you have an insertion that say, give me 7 billion for repairs and maintenance of bridges nationwide. And then you expect us to say, okay, take and go. Which bridges are you doing? We have to know. When we go for oversight, tell us which bridge. Is it the bridge in her village? Is it the bridge in Onyekore's village? We want to know. And those details are necessary for us to know.
By the way, the bridge in my village is collapsed.
Exactly.
Can I make a quick point there? Can I make a quick point? I think what we have, the arguments is making is based on some assumptions that may not necessarily apply at the federal level. All these issues of Karikanweke and the villages, you first of all ask yourself, why do we have state governments?
Local governments.
And why do you have local governments?
Okay.
Because you are bringing in the issue of federal government building town halls and siting boreholes, which it has no, as far as I'm concerned, it has no business doing, because this should be the duty. Now, to make a budget, I am not of the opinion of the school of thought that says, oh, the executive has the upper hand, oh, the legislature has the upper hand. It's like making a baby. The man and the woman must collaborate. Even if you decide to do artificial insemination, you must select the stock that you rightly do, that fits you. So, and that is also the same process of bringing up a child. Yeah, somebody may have to carry the baby in the womb for 9 months, somebody may breastfeed the baby, somebody else could be providing more of the resources. So at the end of the day, you can't say it's my child, this one, two of you own it. So, the problem is that between the executive and the legislature, you are not doing what you should do. There should be consultation from the beginning of the process. At the time the executive is preparing the benchmarks and the parameters, the specific ministry by ministry, there should be consultation. At the level of preparing the medium-term sector strategies, if you know we have a Fiscal Responsibility Act, the medium-term sector strategies comes up to the medium-term expenditure framework, which you approve, and now it becomes the basis for the budget.
Yeah.
Best practices indicate that at the time of preparing those sectoral strategies, for instance, the Ministry of Health, all the committees exercising oversight over the different aspects of the Ministry of Health ought to be represented at that level.
Are you saying they've not been doing that?
They've not been doing that. They've not been.
Effectively.
They have not been.
Gentlemen, we get pressed for time from time to time.
Yeah.
On this program. No, just wait. We'll come to you. We'll come to you. There are reactions. There are reactions from our viewers. There are some reactions already from our viewers. Yes, the power of appropriation is one of the most important powers exercised by the legislature. We're not essentially focusing on that. There are several other things that we would like you to raise before we draw the curtain on this first topic of our discussion. We have another topic to also take on, but let's take additional tweets now from our viewers. The late Jack Solomon, fair mark to an assembly that suffered negative public perception due to jumbo pay of its members, leadership rancor, and continuing graft charges.
Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. Truth is that the 8th National Assembly tried to take Nigerians for a ride by trying to amend the CCT Act because of the trial of the Senate President at CCT.
Sani Michael Omakoji has this tweet. Our 8th Assembly asks EFCC boss to resign. He refused. They also asked the Customs boss to wear uniform. He refused. Are they weak?
Usman Idris Kambra said, I will urge the National Assembly members to support the present administration in its fight against corruption.
Abdul Karim Duro has this tweet. The best National Assembly can do to Nigerians is to scrap one of the houses. We are wasting scarce resources on them. The duties are duplicated.
And from Earl, we have this tweet. Rather than hype of the 8th National Assembly, Nigerians deserves better than what it is getting. Mediocrity is not to be applauded. God bless us all.
All right, gentlemen. I would like, I don't know what, let's take on a different aspect, which is also crucial in terms of stakeholder responsibility. This has been talked about by Dr. Sawaru in passing our Benin Network studios. Lawmakers and their constituents. It's been accepted that, well, it's been discussed several times that, look, your constituents do not appear to have a proper conception of what your duties are. So they expect you as lawmakers to provide boreholes, provide this, provide scholarship, all kinds of things. And that lawmakers themselves make this possible because of the kind of promises you make before you get elected. Have we seen any interaction, increased pace of interaction between lawmakers and their constituents seeking to enlighten them on what they do? For instance, I mean, how many of your constituents, I'm not saying you in particular now, are fully apprised of the interventions that we have seen in the 8th National Assembly with regard to the reform of business and economic laws?
I think before I get to this...
very quickly, because we may have to interject.
I have a critical cause to respond to what the professor has just said. The fact that the professor...
He's
a lawyer.
Okay, whatever it is, I want to respond to what he's just raised. The fact that we are running a democracy, and like I said, democracy is a simple process whereby you have set rules to operate with. So as long as you have rules to operate by, certainly whatever one does as an institution or as an individual must have to be seen from the context of those legal framework. He raised an issue of a situation whereby the legislative arm of government, the legislature in this case, or National Assembly, partakes into preliminary budgetary process. I think that is out of place. I have to say it clearly. But by the principles of separations of power, we have no duty whatsoever to participate in preliminary budgetary process with the executive arm of government. Of course, we could have an informal interface at certain level, but that does not mean we have to maybe usurp or take over their own responsibility to prepare the budget. All that we expect of the executive is to prepare its own estimate, present to the National Assembly, and at the level of that presentation, like you ask, our powers as contained in the Constitution are limitless. Are limitless. We have every right to go into the budget as presented as an estimate, to work on it in tandem with expectation of our own people.
Take on that second aspect. Otherwise, we go over to Benin now. Take on that aspect. We're pressed for time already. The other aspect of lawmakers and their constituents are seeking to enlighten them on what their proper roles should be.
You are intimidating me too much. I can't be intimidated. Let me tell you clearly, if you want me to still go on to the next question, I will take that question on the basis of the fact that we are also charged with a responsibility that we are supposed to address. I think voter education, public education, and popular communication to members of the public, especially our constituents, I think does not form part of our mandate or part of our responsibility. That is why I have always said the press, the media, which is the post estate of the realm, is also an institution of government. And that is why you guys are not been doing justice to us. If you have decided up initio to help the system work,
If you have decided ab initio to support the legislature as an institution, you should have taken that responsibility of educating our people in terms of their voter knowledge, in terms of their understanding of their understanding of our basic responsibility. A situation whereby you take our own example, the Nigerian example of democracy, where you think a member elected by his people to come and serve and work on a budget of over 7-8 trillion naira, and you don't expect that person to put something on the table of his own people, that is a great misnomer. It will never happen. Our own democracy, whether you like it or not, is still a nascent one. And our people have that low kind of education to begin to differentiate from what they expect from the president and what they expect from the legislature. All they know is that they voted the president into power and they voted a member of the House of Representatives into power. I want to tell you that we are doing our best through basic constituted committees and some other agencies, institutions of the legislature to educate the people.
Okay, but those in favor that we should end this discussion now. Say aye. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Has no voted.
Honorable Dogua, thank you very much. We must end the discussion now. We have another topic that we quickly have to take on. Okay, Kingsley,
Dr. Okunzuwa Sawaro, we're pressed for time. Just very quick, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, whose responsibility ultimately is it to enlighten constituents with regard to lawmakers' responsibilities?
You are misappropriating.
Well, members of National Assembly, civil society, and the media, and even the educational system. People used to say civics was a central subject before this time. So it's citizens who are actually going to uphold democracy ultimately, because people go into the National Assembly and also egress. But while they are there, they have a responsibility, but that responsibility is shared with them by these other agencies I've mentioned. Citizens, educational system, the media, and political parties, civil society organizations.
All right, Dr. Sawaro Okunzuwa joining us from our Benin Network studios. We'd like to appreciate your contribution to our discussion this morning. Okay, we also would like to thank Bezo Nyokwere, lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. And of course, the Chief Whip of the House of Representatives, Honorable Al Hassan Adodo, who was trying to whip us.
He wanted to whip us with his cane. We didn't know he had a cane.
Honorable Adodo, thank you for being here today. Always a delight having you. Good morning.
Thank you so much.
Together with Senator Bala Ibn Nala, Deputy Senate Leader, thank you for being with us. We wish you the very best in your third legislative year.
Thank you very
much. We hope that all goes well for your stakeholders and indeed for the country. That does it for our first topic for conversation. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be taking a look at the outcome of the UK elections.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the Office of the Academic Secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
TV Guide magazine is out with fabulous Fab Funke Akindele Bello, aka Jennifer, adorning the cover. She opens a secret not known even to her family. Find out the secret. NTA turns 40 this year. The challenges, the emerging trends in broadcasting, and the way forward. Weekend Dealer 2. Meet the team behind the biggest deal on NTA. Is food still the way to a man's heart? If not, what else? This edition is hot and juicy. Meet your star faces on screen. Entertainment, fashion, young minds, social media, and great personality.
This is idiosyncratic and heterodox.
Yes, Professor John Bull is on the radar. Find out what makes this program the rave of the moment on NTA Network, and for the Prof, over and out. TV Guide. Ask your vendors or book your copy at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
Here's Thursday, the 8th of June, the United Kingdom 2017 general elections polls started. And given a last-minute boost to Conservatives after a Labour surge that saw the gaps close dramatically. Let's find out what is ongoing with Patricia Asamiluba as she gives us this background report to the crucial election.
Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative have clinched on the lead in the opinion polls, but Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party trails closely behind. Britain's 7 political parties stand on key issues, but the main 2 parties are the Conservatives, who pledged to leave the single market and customs union, get a fair settlement of the UK's rights and obligations, and to deliver a vote in both houses of Parliament on the final agreement for Brexit. While the other leading party, Labour, plans to include retaining the benefits of a single market and customs union, immediately guaranteeing the rights of EU nationals living in Britain and avoiding the no-deal option by negotiating transitional arrangements. Majority of the voters are expected to choose between Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative Party and Jeremy Corbyn's opposition Labour Party. Other choices on offer for the 45.7 million eligible voters include the Liberal Democrat Party, which wants to reverse a process for Britain to leave the European Union or Brexit, and Nationalist Party in Scotland and Wales. A total of 650 Westminster's MPs will be elected, with about 46.9 million people registered to vote. Whoever wins will be tasked with negotiating Britain's departure from the EU, with formal talks due to start in little over a week. Both Labour and the Conservatives have ruled out reversing the outcome of last year's referendum.
All right, Patricia Asamiluba, thank you very much there for that background report. Now we're being joined by a guest from London. He's joining us via Skype, Mr. Stephen Akinsoya. Stephen Akinsoya, of course, is a UK-based lawyer and former chair of the Nigeria UK Lawyers Forum. Mr. Akinsoya, a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning. The results are already tumbling in, just perhaps only a few constituencies left, and the indication is that there will be a hung parliament. From your perspective, who has been the winner of this election and who has been the biggest loser, and what does the future hold?
Good morning. I don't think I can hear you very clearly, unfortunately.
Well, let me repeat my question, Mr. Akinsoya. What I said was that most of the results are in already. Perhaps only a couple of constituencies are left. There's an indication that this will be a hung parliament. In other words, the Conservative Party may not have a clear majority or doesn't have a clear majority to form the next government, as it were. But from the results that you know, who are those that have been the biggest winners and who are those that have been the biggest losers? And what does the future hold?
Effectively, it's been a night of disaster for the Conservative Party. No one predicted a result as the one we've heard this morning. We've woken up to this morning. As you rightly say, we have a hung parliament. The Tory parties have lost a number of seats. Labour have gained 29 seats, and we are now in a position where we have a parliament with Labour effectively claiming a moral victory.
Akinsoya, still on the pattern of voting for the Britons. Now, where exactly do we find the center of British politics? There have been these shifts. How is it resonating on ground there?
Sorry, the line is really bad. I'm struggling to hear you, unfortunately.
Okay, we're talking about the pattern in which the voters have actually come on strong this time around. How is the shift? What is the politics like? How is it resonating in the voters' shift pattern?
Essentially, what's happened is that Theresa May called this election effectively to strengthen her mandate. But it's gone spectacularly wrong for her. And in fact, what's happened is that Labour have managed to garner the support of the young, the disenfranchised, and those who feel that they're getting a poor deal under a Conservative government. So she's gone from the position of being a party with a majority of 17 to now being a party where she cannot form a government with a majority.
Okay, Mr. Akinsoya, still taking a look at how the voting actually went, but within a spate of weeks and months, there were aspects of terrorist attacks, and did this in any way dampen the spirit of voters? How did it play out for the people going to vote this time around?
All right. Sorry, I think we're having some connection challenges with Mr. Akinsoya joining us via Skype from London. Just to indicate, Blessing, part of the issues we're trying to clear up, he made a comment about, in terms of his assessment of the showing by the Labour Party, that the Labour Party can actually claim a moral victory in this election. That's one of the issues, of course, would have liked him to clear. But as we just we're trying to ask him what were the key issues in the election. Of course, Brexit was there, but on the eve of the election, we saw how the entire situation was altered by the three terror incidents. There were two of them, of course, taking place in London, and then the other one taking place in Manchester. But clearly, part of the issues that they will be faced with, for some of the most of the results that are in now, the Conservative Party has already lost 12 seats, and Labour Party has gained 29 seats. So the issue, I don't know if we've been able to restore the links up. So yeah, we understand that the links have not been restored. But all right, so now we understand that, Mr. Akinsoya, if you can hear us clearly, I just wanted you to pursue one of the points you talked about. Why did you say that this is a moral victory for the Labour Party? And then take also along with that, so why the connection is still good. One, why is this a moral victory for the Labour Party? And secondly, is the world likely to see Theresa May still as Prime Minister of Britain?
It's a moral victory for the Labour Party, effectively, because they have a leader who no one gave any hope of winning this election, or even mounting anything of a proper opposition to the Conservatives, who had an effective lead already. He'd already come through surviving a challenge to his leadership, not once but twice. But during this election campaign, he somehow managed to connect with the electorate, particularly the young people. And so the Conservatives did not see this coming. So when I say it's a moral victory for Labour, of course, they haven't got the majority vote, but they've done significantly better than anyone predicted. To answer your second question, Theresa May is in a very difficult position. There are those within her own party who will be calling for her to resign. She called this election on the basis of strong and stable leadership, and it seems that that strong and stable leadership was rejected by the British electorate. So she's in a difficult position. The only option for her is to see if she can form something of a government, relying on the help of the Democratic Unionist Party, who have 10 seats. That would give her a working majority, but of course not a majority that would allow the Conservative Party to rule effectively. So we're in a difficult position here. It's still unclear what will happen, but there's also the possibility of this election being rerun in a number of months' time.
Why, Mr. Kinsoya, why do you say that the prospects of perhaps a rerun? I mean, of course, we understand what the challenges might be, but what will be the issues that could warrant a rerun? Will Brexit still be on top of the cards? You know, will the issues pertaining to the fact that Theresa May herself was in charge of Home Affairs and therefore, you know, part of the anti-terror issues that some persons have indicated were not properly taken care of, otherwise we might not have seen the kind of back-to-back terrorist attacks that the UK has witnessed?
Well, effectively, Theresa May, as you know, was prior to being the Prime Minister, she was the Home Secretary. Our police force was cut significantly, and there were proposed cuts to cut the police force further. And in the light of the recent disasters and the tragedies that we've had in London recently with the terrorism attacks, and Manchester, people are saying, well, how can this Prime Minister now move with further austerity cuts at a time when our national security is an issue? So that's a problem for her. She, of course, said that she was the best person to negotiate the Brexit, but her own position may be untenable. And the question is, how can we have someone whose position is untenable as the leader of a party going into Europe to negotiate on behalf of the British people?
All right, Mr. Stephen Akinsoya, a UK-based lawyer and former chair of the Nigeria UK Lawyers Forum, I would like to thank you very much for your insights on the outcome of the UK elections.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Same to you too. All right, so that does it for our second conversation segment. Let's move on very quickly now to sports. And of course, this weekend is a big one with Nigeria taking on South Africa in African Nations Cup qualifier. And of course, so women's tennis, you have the finals scheduled for tomorrow, which is Saturday, Halep and Ostapenko.
Thanks for joining us on sports.
Nigeria Super Eagles journey